Welcome to Planit Butter, my world, where I hopefully inspire you to build yours by being Intucentric, an immersive experience. Every episode is designed to provoke consciousness through entertaining perspectives and applied Intucentric philosophy, while recorded in a variety of international locations as I embody my Intucentric way, you reflect on yours, and together we visit other worlds for occasional guest episodes and learn something cool. I'm Jordan Alexandra Blizzard Planet. This is From My Planet to Yours. Less of a podcast, more of a variety show, and a very funny approach to a documentary series. Thanks for joining me in Bali, Indonesia, for episode 122, where we're going to relate the film Materialists to being Intucentric. Materialist is fundamentally about romantic love and the superficial nature it has evolved into in modern society. I saw this movie recently on a flight somewhere, possibly here, can't really recall. And then last night I went to an outdoor film situation, which was, I just love anything outdoor and I love movies, and it's rare that I sit down and really immerse into one. And when I do, I'm doing it with such intention. So it's always very fun, and I just feel like I enter the world of the movie. So the funny thing is about this movie night, guys, is actually they gave us two movies to choose from, Materialists and I think it was called Wolf. I voted on the other one because I had just seen Materialists, and the other one ended up being the winner. And yet the universe, as it does, had other plans. So after 45 minutes of the hosts not being able to play that chosen film, they defaulted to the alt film, which was Materialists. And at the 45-minute mark, I was just about ready to leave because I'm like, I ate my dinner, I had my popcorn, they're having issues, my bedtime's soon. And then they click play, of course. So I'm like, all right, I feel as though we are meant to watch this movie again. So upon the beginning of this film, I said to myself, I welcome a new perspective, because the first time I welcomed myself to just simply watch the film and set aside work intentions for the film, because my brain goes to, obviously, all the time, Planit Butter. But once in a bit, I'm like, what if you just didn't? So, and I always do in some form, because it comes out in some other way, because that's the nature of Planit Butter and everything, life. It's all interconnected, right, guys? All right, so we're going to go through my notes from this movie, which is basically I just extracted some quotes from the film, and then we're going to plop these quotes through the Intucentric Planit Butter volcanoes and blast them out to you. The movie itself takes place in New York City, and the focus is on this woman who is a matchmaker, and the focus becomes more on her love life and her ex, who's really, spoiler alert, her soulmate, and this new guy who's a quote unquote unicorn, who's this perfect person, superficially speaking, from a materialistic standpoint. Yeah. And the story unfolds. We're going to go through a series of quotes that I've extracted and then put it through the lens of being Intucentric. To start, I actually just want to highlight this one line that's absolutely hilarious and just deserves a little bit of an applause. This girl says, "I'm trying to settle." I just think that's a genius line. Next, they reference this supposedly common quote of, "You're not ugly, you just don't have any money." While I do believe there's some truth to that, because money can buy us a lot of things that can aesthetically improve our appearances, whether it's the minimum of skincare, like moisturizer, a high quality moisturizer, or it's some surgery. So there's truth to that. Yet, when being Intucentric, because we are entirely rooted in our own empowerment and taking as much personal responsibility for ourselves as we possibly can, we recognize that our attractiveness is also a product of our inner beauty, which is really our inner peace, our inner clarity, our coherence, our decision mentally that we're fucking hot, right? Like, make the decision and then clarify your boundaries, respect your boundaries, show up confidently, and sustain or reconnect with your alignment while practicing your self-friendship, committing to embracing, understanding, and enjoying yourself, and effectively making decisions with our Planit Butter Jet ring of consciousness, intuition, sensations, action, sensations again. And I know I said that fast because I say this all the time. We're just applying it to a brand new perspective. So decide you're hot, get a little Intucentric about it, and watch your attractiveness skyrocket. And I bet you will inevitably make more money because you are practicing your Intucentric way, which can then provide you the things that this quote is referencing, which is, you're not ugly, you don't have any money. Then you can use the money for the things that you maybe think are quote unquote ugly about yourself, which is okay. They reference this later in the movie. It's like, the surgeries are an investment in ourselves, right? So do your thing. Next. This quote, they say, who our partner is determines our life. When being Intucentric, we recognize that our partner determines our life to the extent that it mirrors our life. Our partner, when being Intucentric, is the strongest, most powerful, most revealing, best lighting to see all that we need to see, all of the personal responsibility looking at us in the face, and also showing us our boundaries, our values. Yeah. So it does determine our life, which really is, we are determining our life because it's a mirror of ourselves. Do you like what you see? Do you want to look deeper? Think about it. Next quote. Marriage is a business deal, always has been, and you can walk away at any time. And then this girl says, she's crying and it's her wedding. She's like, I spent so much money on this wedding so that I could just feel like a woman. I just think that's hilarious because obviously you don't need a wedding to feel like a woman. Period. That's just a silly one. But the business deal part, this was my favorite part because, yes, it is a business deal. Being married is literally for the government, right? Like, it's for, whether it's for us through taxes and whatever. I don't really know too much. And I don't plan to, because this is more my personal perspective, not so much the Intucentric perspective, but I'm going to offer it regardless because it's not Intucentric by default of being my perspective. I've shared this with you guys before, and I just want to encourage the thought. Get married if you want to get married. Love a business deal. However, if we strip away the legalities or the business components of marriage, we're kind of just left with this promise to be with somebody forever. I personally love the idea of a perpetual fiance, because the fiance stage is that step of sincerity in intention to marry. And if we are looking at marriage as not the business deal, as the promise to be together forever, then the fiance part feels much more true, because then it's the intention to be together forever. And that just feels, again, more honest, not a business deal, more healthily attached, and also kind of flirty and fun because it's like fiance. It just sounds kind of sexy. So I'm all for the perpetual fiance. And again, personally, selfishly, I also have a vision of eloping, but it's more in the sense of just like I keep living my life and he keeps up with my travels, and because he also obviously travels, and we go off into our Intucentric ways together, separately together, boppity boppity boop, on the Planit Butter jet recording the show, right? So it's a perpetual fiance. The legality, it's like if he and myself agree that there is benefit to this business deal, then we will go forth. But perpetual fiance is just very, very Jordan. So obviously we want to be as Jordan as possible. Intucentric. Consider it. All right. Then there's a whole bunch of quotes throughout the film where it's really a reflection of the person's value of themselves. And she says, so this is, of course, it's out of context, but she says, so you'd realize you're wrong and you realize you're not interested in me. You can do better than me. And it's just like, I hope nobody utters those words to another soul ever in their life, because what? Guys, that's not Intucentric at all. That is not somebody empowered. That is not somebody grounded in themselves. That is not somebody who is self-aware of all of their amazing attributes. That is heartbreaking. So when we are Intucentric, we don't believe other people can do better than us. We are the best, right? You're the best, you're the best, you're the best. Everybody's the best in their mind. I want everybody to be so full of themselves that they recognize how invaluable they are. That's being Intucentric. Then the next quote is referring to that perfect dude. They say, the reason my clients cannot lower their standards is because men like you actually exist. And in the film, they reference him as a unicorn. And I would really love for everybody, again, when being Intucentric, we view ourselves as a unicorn. Everybody views themselves as a unicorn. I want everybody to be a unicorn. I walk around being like, I am a unicorn, so I know that my unicorn exists. So I wouldn't lower my standards because I know my unicorn exists, because I'm a unicorn and I exist, which means my counterpart exists. It's the same thing with anything. When I moved to LA, the amount of people that have what negative things to say about LA, it's like, well, aren't you in LA? Like, I'm in LA and I'm awesome. So obviously there's awesome people here. You know, that's the perspective. It's like, if I'm here and I'm a unicorn, then there are other unicorns, specifically my romantic counterpart unicorn. And I hope everybody thinks this way. And that reminds me, in the book Intucentric, we have this lovely chapter called Up Your Cockiness. Got it, guys? I'm going to read you a little snippet. Remember Humblerden from earlier in this little game of ours? Someone who is equal parts humble, self-aware, and confident. Could be you. Humanity actually needs you to show off. What are your skills? Your strengths? Don't know? Or maybe you do know. What are you doing about it? Hopefully, a lot. If you're not willing to do more, less, and pivot with that magic of yours, then unfortunately, you're fueling the life you're currently living and likely feeling unfulfilled by, rather than co-creating the one you desire. Ooh. Ah. With me? Show us what you got. We need your magic. Your magic is your Intucentric path. The more you practice, the more you cultivate and recognize your magic, your invaluable self. The fact that you are a fucking unicorn. Cool. So, again, with the devaluing herself, this girl says, "You're the total package. I don't know why you're throwing it all away on someone like me." And then he answers her saying, "You say you think I'm smart and talk to me like a caveman. I wouldn't date you if I didn't see value." And then he goes on, blah, blah, blah. And then he says, "Material assets are cheap. I want to be with you for intangible assets. They don't degrade. They only get sharper." I love that line. The intangible assets. When we practice our Intucentric way, you are strengthening your intangible assets and also your tangible ones. But the intangible ones are the ones that strengthen more sustainably. Yeah? Because the external ones, which is they're referring to, it's like your looks, everything fades, but it's like the beauty also changes. There's so many opinions to have here. I'm just going to keep moving. Now, the most important section, assault. This woman in the movie goes on a date that the matchmaker set her up with, gets assaulted. The matchmaker is then in the boss's office and says to the boss, "Has this happened before?" The boss says, "Of course, it's dating. You do it long enough, it happens to all of us. It's a known risk." At this moment, I would like to encourage all of us, especially because the majority of my audience is men between 25 and 45, predominantly 35 to 45. Gentlemen, please consider listening to my dear friend Krystyna Hutchinson's new song with Avery Pearson titled "Saturday Night." You can listen on Spotify or buy it pretty much anywhere. I think it will offer you some enlightening perspectives. That is all I will say on that. And they go on to talk about why they chose that match for her. And it was that spirit of, he checked these boxes, blah, blah, blah. And the woman who was assaulted, she says, "Yeah, he checked these boxes, but you didn't know the type of man he is." Guys, when you are Intucentric, the type of man you become is one that is so fucking safe for society, empowered, grounded, centered, clear, emotionally intelligent, emotionally competent, a strong communicator, respectful. That's an Intucentric man, and so much more. This is a tough one because I don't know how to really communicate the depth of what I would like to communicate here, and I didn't plan what I would say. And I just feel very passionately about men creating a safe fucking space for women and men alike to comfortably walk this earth without fear. Like the fact that on a date, like that is so, it is crazy. People, it's, oh, I don't have words. There's nothing powerful. Like the level of insecure you must feel and disempowered and disconnected to yourself to take emotional, mental, or physical advantage of a woman because you have the physical strength or mental fucked upness to do so, because it's, if you're abusing women, it's like you are just so severely traumatized and don't know it. Again, didn't really think this one through. Oh, butterfly. But what I will share is this other part of the, so this in this part of the movie, the guy later shows up to this woman's house, ringing the doorbell obsessively, saying he wants to talk because she got lawyers and wants to get a restraining order and all this stuff, right? And they said the cops wouldn't come because he wasn't trying to break in, despite it being harassment. And he's a fucking criminal. So crazy. And the reason he knew where she lived, she says she let him walk her home after dinner because she was scared. Like, oh, the truth of that. Do you know, guys, it is so complicated to be so vulnerable, because she was already abused after she let him walk her home. And she was scared from the abuse that she allowed him to walk her home. And it's like, rationally, that doesn't make sense. But emotionally and irrationally, she was so, talk about being Intucentric, her boundaries were crossed. She could not show up confidently. She's disconnected from her intuition in that moment. And this man is just taking more and more advantage of it because he's entirely disconnected from himself and his emotional well-being and intellect. It's so mind-blowing. And so I'll share my first night in college. I was out with some friends that I just met because it was my first freaking night. And both my friends went with these two guys to the same house to go kiss, right? I was going home. I wanted to go eat some pizza, right? And this dude who we met earlier in the night that was interested in one of my friends, I didn't know where I was going, and I bumped into him on the street. And I was like, oh, a face I recognize. Can you help me get home? And I also thought, oh, he's interested in my friends. We knew some of the same people. So I'm like, great, can you help me get home? He's like, yeah, okay. So we're walking. The whole walk, he kept trying to stop to kiss me. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? And then he kept stopping. At one point, I was like, okay, yeah. I kissed his cheek. I give him a peck on the cheek. And then I'm like, great, okay, I want to get the fuck home. And my phone died, right? So, and I don't know where anybody else on these streets were. We get to my building, and I'm like, great, I'm home. Thank you, bye. And similarly to this girl, I'm like, I couldn't really explain it, but somehow he managed to enter the building with me. And I'm like, just telling myself to stay calm. I'm also kind of drunk. I'm also 18. And I'm now in my dorm room alone with this guy. And I'm like, look, I'm good. Please get the fuck out. And he's not leaving. I start taking out my food. I'm eating my food. I'm like, please leave, please leave, please leave. And then he starts to try to go to my bed. And so I stand in front of my bed and I'm like, you're not going on my bed. Please leave. And I'm not getting aggressive. I wasn't thinking physical because he's a dude. And next thing I know, he starts masturbating. Yeah. And finishes on my fucking leg. And I just stood there looking like, this is a fucking joke. What the fuck? And after he fucking finished on my fucking leg, then I found it within myself to push him out, lock the door, make sure he leaves, all the things. And what I did in my Intucentric empowered way of handling this, for the next 3 years, because he's a year older, for the next 3 years, every single time I crossed paths with him, because we still had a lot of the same friends, every time I saw this dude, I screamed, my leg, in like a really silly voice. Every time I saw this dude. And then eventually I told all his friends and stuff. I told all my friends. I told lots of people all the time. But that's my Intucentric way. And thankfully it didn't escalate beyond that. Masturbation. But I don't even know what to say beyond that, because it's just, I felt called to share it anyway. Yeah, men who are watching, listen to Krystyna's song. Think about the story that I just told you. Onwards. Now that I let that little passionate rant out, let's close this baby up with a more loving and thought-provoking positioning around the concept of risk. This quote, she says to her soulmate, "You make me brave enough to admit I want to be happy." How beautiful. And this reminded me that recently I had a conversation where a human's capacity and willingness to take greater risks increases when we feel we have that emotional support in our life. When we feel we are backed, we have greater capacity to take more risks. And what I wanted to dance with is how interesting it is that there's kind of these two types of risks. One is I have nothing to lose, and the other is the perspective of I have everything, so I have the greater capacity to take more risks. Both are willing to take, it's the same amount of risk, just one feels the emotional support and the other one doesn't. One has nothing to lose and the other one doesn't view the risk of losing what they have. It's just the view of more expansiveness, evolution, right? It's the willingness to invest in themselves, in whatever the risk they are independently taking. And there's just something so beautiful about that to me, because both people view it as I have nothing to lose, except one side is like I have nothing and the other one is I have everything, so I have nothing to lose. And that's why it's so complicated to explain this nuance. Are you with me on this? This just brings us to Planit Butter's term, riskadence. Confidence in oneself during uncertainty. It's an ongoing evolution, and the confidence in oneself during uncertainty expands, because it's the capacity for riskadence, the capacity for confidence in the self during uncertainty. And the truth that uncertainty is ever present. And the most empowered decision to navigate it all is being Intucentric. Consciously choosing to balance our ego and our intuition by leading with our intuition and prioritizing self-control and self-expression through our core concepts of self-friendship, our 3 core methods, and the Planit Butter Jet, Ring of Consciousness, our cycle for decision making. It's like that. And we'll close out with, in the spirit of love, a page from Intucentric, chapter 1 + 1 = 8. Become in love. Become holds space for the work required, the learning, the focus. In holds space for the energetic space for active participation. Love holds space for what we naturally have, are, and desire. Well, that was pretty intense. Thanks for joining me for episode 122. I hope something makes you think, makes you show up differently, makes you want to be a little Intucentric. You can get Intucentric on planetbutter.com and indulge in the rest of the world of Planit Butter at your leisure. I will see you next Thursday. From my planet to yours.